Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Cirque 4, which was the second biggest event of the weekend, coming in at an A+ tier. And you had a bunch of super high level talent for both Japan and America showing up. One of the most top heavy events I have seen in quite some time. And for our top 16 finishers, you're going to have Luis, Dominator, Beast Mode Paul, and J-Bone X in 13th. Goblin, Cola, Doramigi, and Zap in 9th. In 7th place, you're going to have Tweek and Peabnut. 5th place was Shadic and T. 4th place was Spargo. 3rd place was Light. 2nd place was Lima, and winning the entire thing was Miya. So first things first, let's talk about the top 8 seeds that did not get into top 8. The first one is going to be Zomba, and he just didn't show up for the second day of Cirque. I think he got food poisoning or something along those lines, so he had to unfortunately DQ. And for anyone that's curious about how this would work in the rankings, it just won't affect him at all. It'll basically be like Zomba was not at this event, so it's not really going to matter for him, though it definitely is unfortunate, travel all this way, and then like the final day where it matters the most, you just, can't go because you're sick. That's obviously not what you want to see. But aside from that, you're going to have Snow and Hurt not making it into the top 8, and they're actually both going to end up in 17th place. You're going to have Snow losing to Osh9, the Mii Brawler player, in the winner's side of the bracket, and that's actually a really interesting matchup. That doesn't surprise me that Osh9 came out on top, because I can absolutely see Brawler just being really good against other Brawler style archetypes just because of how good his grab is and how much value he's able to get out of that. So after being upset, you still had Snow getting a really nice win over Kananabe, but unfortunately after that he ran into Goblin and ended up losing that one. He does end up taking a game with the Aegis, so hey, at least the secondary is looking clean, but ultimately still falls. And you're also going to have Hurt finishing in 17th place. He's going to end up dropping to Peabnut in the winner's side of the bracket. So Peabnut getting his revenge from the Lit Invitational, wasn't able to close it out. And I think it was a reverse 3-0 actually for that first encounter. So quite literally wasn't able to close it out, but gets his run back right here and sends Hurt down to the loser side, where he immediately loses to Dominator, the Mario player. So just huge props to Dominator. That's not even like a matchup thing. Dominator just like was playing out of his mind, looked like the better player in that set. So Hurt, he's been a little bit shaky in this second half of the year. Still going to be probably a top 20 player by the end of the season. It's not like he's getting like actual bad results. 17th at an A+ tier is by no means the end of the world, but compared to that top 5 status that he held for the first half of the year, it's a bit unusual for him. And there's 2 more Japanese players that didn't get into the top 8 that I haven't mentioned yet. And I want to talk about all of them just because they came all this way. We at least got to give them a mention. And that's going to be Kananabe and Doramigi. Starting off with Kananabe, who ended up getting upset by J-Bone X in the winner's side of the bracket. And really quickly, I just want to give a shout out to J-Bone because they had a really solid run at this event, getting to 13th place. And while they definitely benefited from Zomba DQing in the loser side of the bracket, the round before, they did end up beating Viri in a 3-0, and Viri is another very good Rob player, so maybe he has a chance against Zomba. Who's to say there? But regardless, just shout out to J-Bone for the run. Getting upset over a player like Kananabe's got to be feeling extra good, and Kananabe was still able to salvage his run, getting a couple wins in the loser side. Nothing incredibly notable, but he was taken out by Snow, a bit of a Japanese team kill for 25th, so not the end of the world for Kananabe, but just kind of a run where he doesn't really get anything out of it, to be honest, and he doesn't really lose a ton from it. Just an okay placement. And then you're going to have Doramigi finishing in 9th place. In the winner side of the bracket, he's going to end up losing to Light, which makes a ton of sense. Just a really fast player that's extremely difficult to beat as Min. You're just getting smothered constantly, and even when you finally do get Light off stage, you need to like ensure that he's not making it back, because if he does, well, then you have to play neutral against him again, and that is not a lot of fun. But in the loser side of the bracket, you had Doramigi picking up wins on both Epic Gabriel and Dominator, and shout out for that Epic Gabriel win as well, because I do think that Rob Min is a little bit tricky for Min, and then unfortunately for him, he runs into Spargo for that top 8 qualifier. And even though Min absolutely has a clear win condition versus Cloud, it's the same thing as Light, where he's just an extremely quick player. It's really hard to not get overwhelmed, and suffice to say, he got overwhelmed. Our low tier hero run is going to be coming in from TM7 Zap, who finally gets a really solid run offline with solo Bowser Jr., which makes it all that much more impressive. He's going to end up losing to T in the winner's side, beats Arsenic to get into that top 32. Once in the top 32, he doesn't have to play Fusix because Fusix ends up DQing, but then he beats both Aaron and Louis Money to get to that top 8 qualifier, where he does fall to Tweek, but he takes Tweek all the way to Game 5 with Bowser Jr., Tweek's former main, by the way. That's where he started, back to his roots, and it almost was the death of him, but Tweek barely closes that one out. Regardless, though, amazing that Zap was even able to make it that close, especially on a character like Bowser Jr. And just huge props to him for making an incredible run like this. We've all known he was a very talented player. You still have to be amazing to get those online wins, but to be able to translate it to offline is a whole different level of play, though it seems like he's on the right track. And the final two players that I want to mention before we get into that top 8 are going to be Goblin and Cola, the two Roy boys. And you're actually going to have Goblin almost beating Spargo in the winner's side of the bracket, forcing him off the Aegis as he goes up 2-1. But the Cloud is able to close out those last 2 games, but still very competitive set there. And in the loser side of the bracket, they do not slow down at all with a massive upset over Snow, like I already mentioned, as well as a really nice win over J-Bone X before falling to Peabnut. So 9th place for Goblin, looking pretty good there, and beating the Aegis, something that Cola wasn't able to do, actually forcing out the Cloud. So definitely got to give Cola, or rather Goblin, some props there. And then for Cola, you also got to give him some props because he manages to take Tweek to game 5, and don't tell Tweek that I said this, but he probably should have won that set. Like, he was like the most robbed I've ever seen anyone robbed in game 3. It was an actual tragedy, but I digress. In the loser side of the bracket, he gets wins over both Choco Taco and Beast Mode Paul before falling to Lima. So maybe a little bit unfortunate that we didn't see either of these Roy players in the top 8, but they both had very solid runs. And we have arrived at the top 8. And if there's anyone that I left out and you're curious about their run, just leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to tell you how they did and sub while you're down there. But starting off with our 7th place finishers, that being Tweek and Peabnut. Let's start off with Tweek specifically. He's going to be able to pick up wins on Dominator and Cola to get to that top 8 qualifier, where he then ends up facing Miya in the winner's side, and it was a very close set between Tweek and Miya here, and Miya actually ends up reverse 3-0ing it, and you could literally see Miya figuring this one out in real time. Like, it was actually kind of scary to watch him just like slowly make these adaptations. Like, game 1 to game 5, Miya was a completely different player, and Tweek just was not able to keep up with those adaptations. In the loser side of the bracket, has another stressful game 5 set versus TM7 Dap to actually get into that top 8, and once in the top 8, he has the misfortune of running into Spargo, which is only unfortunate just because that guy is like the best player in the world, and even if he maybe wasn't playing like it this weekend, he was still playing quite good as he was able to beat Tweek 3-1 despite that matchup being a little bit tricky for Cloud. So Tweek, I would say a solid weekend for him overall. He's got a 4th place at Invitational, 7th place at Cirque, no underperformances. He's got a bunch of really good wins, didn't take any bad losses. Just a good week for Tweek, though I wouldn't say an amazing weekend for him. But Peabnut was definitely someone that had an amazing weekend, or at least he got pretty close to it, because he was able to get wins over both Kobe and most notably Hurt to get to that top 8 qualifier. Getting that run back on Hurt has got to feel so good, because you don't know the next time you're going to be able to play that player. It's probably going to be quite some time. And for that top 8 qualifier, he ends up fighting Light in one of my favorite sets of the entire tournament. Extremely competitive as well. Goes all the way to game 5, but Light just barely closes it out. And honestly, huge shouts to Peabnut for making that one super close, because that matchup is awful for Mega Man, at least in my opinion. He does beat Goblin to get into that top 8, and once in the top 8, he ends up fighting Lima. Now, I'm not sure the intricacies of the Mega Man Bayonetta matchup, but I don't really think it would be a good one for Mega Man. I feel like Bayonetta would be able to play outside of your burst range and just kind of bully you when she actually gets into your zone. So Peabnut manages to take a game there, but he does lose the set. And same thing for Tweek. It is a solid weekend for him overall. He's got a 9th place at the Invitational and a 7th place at Cirque. And this is just more performances that are once again solidifying him as the best Mega Man in the world. In 5th place, you're going to have T and Shadic, starting off with T, who does benefit from that Zomba DQ, but he still has to beat both TM7 Zap and, most importantly, Spargo to get into top 8. Goes all the way to game 5, but T does come out on top, and that is a 2-0 record over Spargo this weekend. Even if he did nothing else this weekend, that would be a pretty good record to take away. But he also got top 8 at 2 major events. So, obviously he did more than that. He is going to unfortunately lose out the second he does get into top 8, losing 2 game 5 sets to both Miya and Lima. Pac-Man for Miya, and then Bayonetta, or rather Kazuya, for Lima. But honestly, not the end of the world for him. I think Bayonetta is a really difficult character for T's lineup to get specifically, and I think Miya is just a really difficult person, honestly, for T to get specifically. And in a timeline that honestly isn't super different from our own, T could have been your winner of both Cirque and Invitational. I was very impressed by his play this weekend, and it's been way better than I've seen from him in quite some time. So if you're a T fan, things are definitely on the up and up. And if you're a Shadic fan, they are also on the up and up because this guy only gets better. He's going to pick up wins on Viri, Aaron, and Lima to get into that top 8 to the winner's side with no games dropped now. Unfortunately, once he gets into top 8, kind of the same thing as T. Actually, the exact same thing as T. He starts losing games. He has a bad matchup against Light. It's just really, really difficult for Corrin. And even though you do have Shadic doing pretty good there historically in their recent encounters, you do have Light coming out this time around. And then for Shadic in the loser side, he's going to run into Spargo, which is kind of like, you know, one of the last people that you want to see as really anyone, but especially as a sword player, in my opinion, because you're going to have to out fundamental Spargo as a sword player, and that is a lot easier said than done. So both Shadic and T just kind of run into a difficult matchup in top 8 and then a difficult player in top 8, and sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. In 4th place, you're going to have Spargo. 3rd place, Light. Spargo's going to pick up wins on Odyssey and Goblin before falling to T. Beats Dormigi to get into top 8, and once in top 8, he beats both Tweek and Shadic before falling to Lima. So this was a bit of a rough weekend from Spargo for his standard. Of course, you're going to have that 9th place at Invitational, now a 4th place here. But if you take a step back, things really are not that bad at the Invitational. He takes a loss to T, and he takes a loss to Miya. T is playing amazing. He's probably going to be top 20 by the end of the season. Miya is definitely going to be top 3 by the end of the season. At this bracket, again, he loses to T, he loses to Lima, who just got 2nd place at 2 major events, probably also going to be somewhere at least in the top 30. So he really doesn't take any bad losses this weekend, and he gets a bunch of good wins at this event alone, getting wins over Dormigi, Tweek, and Shadic. So while it is definitely not ideal that Spargo didn't do really good at any of these performances, really it's bad that Miya did good at those performances more so than Spargo did bad, if that makes sense. Like, Miya getting all those wins and actually winning Cirque, going far at Invitational and collecting dubs that Spargo, you know, would have got if he was in that position, those are going to be what's hurting him more so than him just not doing great at this event. So yeah, it sucks that Spargo didn't perform, but also he got 9th and 4th place. Like, it's not like he actually got bad results and he actually got bad losses. He still only has good losses. He really just kind of missed out on a couple opportunities to get some more good wins, which isn't the end of the world. He's still in contention for best in the world. In fact, I still think he's the front runner for best in the world, but I guess only time will tell on that one. And for 3rd place, you are going to have Light, who had an amazing weekend. 1st place at Invitational, 3rd place at this event with wins over Danny, Dormigi, Peabnut, and Shadic, only losing to Miya in the winner's side, and then Light or rather Lima in the loser side. So Light, honestly, don't have a ton to say. He just was like really, really solid this weekend, played out of his mind, won the major, got 3rd place at the other one. So just huge props to him. And our grand finalists are going to be Lima in 2nd and Miya in 1st. And in my opinion, Lima was the player of the weekend, and he just barely edged it out over Light, who were both tied for 2nd place overall because of this losers run at Cirque. He ends up beating both Kiki and Oshine before getting sent down to the loser side by Shadic, where he then beats Cola, Peanut, T, Spargo, Light, and Miya in the first set of grand finals before losing in the reset of grand finals. And that's a reverse 3-0 on Miya, by the way. And even though the last game is with the B Sword Fighter, a reverse 3-0 on Miya is still a reverse 3-0 on Miya. You cannot take that away from Lima. And Lima is the best Bayonetta player in the world after this weekend. I'm very confident in saying that. Tom P has been performing definitely a little bit under his normal standard in the second half of the year, but after this performance from Lima, just the culmination of those two things is going to make me give it to Lima. Now, of course, Tom P can't steal it back. It's not like he's had an unbelievably terrible season, but this is just looking amazing for Lima. Again, he gets 2 Miya wins this weekend. He gets a Spargo win. He gets a Light win, and that's just to name some of the juicy ones. He was playing out of his mind, and the way that he was mixing up his defensive and aggressive play was the thing that I was the most impressed by, because usually Lima is just like all defense. He's super hard spec into that, but this weekend I felt like he was using his aggression so much better. I think he was bringing him a lot of success, and of course he still had that ironclad defense that if he didn't want you in, you just were not getting in. So big props to Lima for the weekend. I was very, very happy with how he was playing, but unfortunately for him, it wasn't good enough to get the dub this time around, because Miya is going to be your winner of Cirque 4, and he had like the hardest bracket that you could have given. They gave him Seabrick, the brawler player, then Stars, the cloud player, then Beast Mode Paul, language gap and hero. Then they gave him Tweek, who beat him at Levitational. Then they gave him T, who's just like, T, really good. Then they gave him Light, who had also been doing really good against him recently, and he won all of those sets, every single one of them. In the grand finals versus Lima, you do have Lima resetting the bracket, but I'm not gonna lie, in the second set of grands, Lima was just like, or rather Miya was just like, all right, I'm just gonna walk in, and he just won. He just won 3-0. It didn't even look like he was sweating. He was just like, okay, enough fun and games. That was silly and all, but I'm getting tired. I want to go home. And go home he did with a 3-0 and a trophy. So suffice to say, Miya had an amazing weekend. He's going to get that win over Spargo at the Invitational, as well as beating other people, but I'm sure the Spargo win was the highlight of that. And for the Cirque bracket, he's literally just going to win the entire thing. Like, you cannot do better than that. Miya's put himself in an even better position to become the best player in the world. And while I still think that Spargo is in the front running for that category, Miya has only made it better for himself, and I would now put him as the definitive second best player in the world, just behind Spargo, for now at least. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This sport has been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.